Welcome to the Mental Health Multiverse.
We're your hosts,
HB
and LB.
We'll be breaking down some of our favorite movies and TV shows as they relate to mental health, self-healing, and overall wellness, while also breaking stigmas, shedding light on misinterpretations, and helping you understand yourself a little better.
If you're also on a healing journey and enjoy pop culture, stick around. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mental Health Multiverse. Today, we are talking about turning red. Yay, 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 yay. I'm very excited. For people who know me off of Instagram and or TikTok, you may know why. I am particularly excited about this movie and talking about it and all of its, I was going to say juiciness, but I feel like that's kind of weird. And all of its gems. Let's go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really great movie. I like many things about it, and we will obviously discuss all of the deeper meanings that it has throughout this episode.
Yes, exactly. So for those of you who don't know, haven't seen it, this movie came out in March of 2022. So I think around this at that time, I don't know if it actually hit theaters, but I know it was on Disney Plus. And the movie is about a 13-year-old girl who is torn between staying her mom's dutiful daughter and the changes of adolescence. And as if the challenges were not enough, whenever she gets overly excited, she transforms into a giant red panda. Hence the title of the movie, Turning Red.
Yeah. And so if you have not seen this movie, as always, we highly recommend you watch it before listening to the podcast, because major spoilers ahead. Not only are major spoilers ahead, but also we're going to be talking about a lot of the themes that come up, and it may be more helpful to have context to those things than just like listening to us talk about it.
Yeah.
But one thing I like about the title of Turning Red, not only using that red panda, like literally the little girl turns into a red panda, but also like turning red is like a phrase for like when you're getting angry or embarrassed. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the big emotions that cause her to turn into a giant red panda. So,
yes. Yeah. There's a lot of deeper meanings with that title, and it's very clever. I really like it. So, as far as personal experience goes, I saw it on Disney Plus. I thought it was going to be just a really cute movie about a girl turning into a red panda. And instead, I cried for 15 minutes straight after the credits rolled. So, for those who are unfamiliar, like I said in the synopsis, the movie really touches a lot on the complicated relationships people may have with their parents when they feel like they have to please and appease and be the quote unquote perfect child. And a lot of that is like kind of dismissing your own needs and honoring your parents. And I think actually I should just read this. The main character's name is Mei Lin. And her opening monologue really sums it all up. And she says, "The number one rule in my family, honor your parents. They're the supreme beings who gave you life, who sweated and sacrificed so much to put a roof over your head, food on your plate, an epic amount of food. The least you can do in return is every single thing they ask. Of course, some people are like, be careful, honoring your parents sounds great, but if you take it too far, well, you might forget to honor yourself." And then she goes on to say, "Luckily, I don't have that problem." And then the rest of the movie is about how she has that exact problem.
Exactly. The whole time I was like honoring her self-awareness, like, you go, girl. And then it was like, oh no, you don't know. You don't know.
You don't
yet.
know, girl. You don't know.
You don't know.
Have you seen this before?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I was just trying to think because I think we were friends already when this movie came out. Like we had met already.
Yes.
So I remember your reaction to this movie coming out. I remember how viscerally you reacted to this movie coming out, because it was like when we were doing the same coaching program together.
Yes. Much like, it's still saved as a highlight on my page. Like if you go to my Instagram page, there's a highlight that just says Turning Red, and you can still see from over 2 years ago my reaction to this movie. So
I don't remember why I watched it. It may have been because of you, not because like you told me to or anything. It also may have just been my own genuine curiosity and being like, this is on Disney Plus now. I would like to watch it. Plus, I babysit. Like, as you all know, I nanny, and like sometimes I like to relate to the children I babysit. And so, like, there's many reasons I may have watched it. I just don't remember what that reason is.
Yeah.
And I remember really, really, really liking it. Like, and I don't have any of the more like history that you sort of have connected to it. The reason I really connected to this movie is because I loved the nostalgia aspect of it. It takes place in 2002. And you know how old I was in 2002? I was 12 years old. So like I could so relate because like they have the Tamagotchis, they have the boy bands, they have the Nokia phones, like they have all the nostalgic things. And so that for me was really exciting. And I also so very incredibly relate to having an unhealthy obsession with boys at that age. Like I reread, so this is like diving deep into my own history of who I am as a person, but like when I was 13, one of my best friends passed away. And like that is very sad. We do not have to talk about it now, but if it's something you'd like to know, we could talk about it later. However, the way that I coped with her death was by writing out every single moment that we spent together for an entire year before she died. So like from our age 12 through our age 13, right?
Yeah.
And when I went back and reread that, because like I think it was a beautiful way for me to get my grief out, was just like reliving every moment that I had with her.
Yeah.
But when I went back to reread it, it was all about boys. Like when I went back and reread it as an adult, all we talked about and cared about was like boys. And I was like, this is how I processed my friend's grief, was by like talking about all the boys we had crushes on. And like it's so interesting because like that was who we were then. You know, like all we cared about it was like all the hormones and all of the like, who just has a crush on who has a crush on who, oh my god. And like,
or
it,
like
going back
cute with who.
Yeah, and going back and rereading that, I cringed so much. I was like, oh, I love that, you know? But it's like those are the kinds of emotions you have when you're like 12, you know?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and also another reason I relate to that is because I was deep into the falling in love with Rupert Grint phase at that point of my life. And I had printed out pictures of him. They were hung up all over my place. I had a framed picture of him that I slept with every night. Like it was that level of obsession. And I know I was talking to you about this before we started recording, but like it was normal to have that level of unhealthy obsession with celebrities. Like I just remember that it wasn't weird that I did this. Like my other friends, some of them were like, it was about Johnny Depp. Some of them, it was about Leonardo DiCaprio. It was like just very normal for 13, 12-year-old girls to have unhealthy obsessions with celebrities at that point. So I don't feel bad about it. I related so hard. And I cringed so hard when her mom brings the photos that she drew, the pictures she drew to the guy at the Dairy Mart, and just like, I was like, how embarrassing.
It like pains me. Like the secondhand embarrassment and the discomfort I feel was like it was so uncomfortable. But we can get into that. But definitely how the mom just like had no boundaries. There was a lot of enmeshment in their relationship, even though it wasn't in a very like abusive, manipulative kind of way. It was definitely like unhealthy. But I wanted to say, to all of the things you just said, you would have been Maylin's bestest friend in the whole wide world. You guys would have gotten along great.
I honestly, like, I know we'll talk about this later, but like, I think I am Abby. Like, I just am. Look at Abby in that movie. That was me when I was like 12 or 13, only I was a lot less like put together. I don't know how they like picked like these kids all having like really nice outfits. Like, no. When I was 12, I didn't know what I was wearing. I did not have like a matching purple on purple.
Yeah, no, same. Like, oh my gosh, what's her name? The South Asian character. Priya, yes.
Is it
like
Priya?
Priya
I think it's Priya.
Looks so cool and put together, and I love her outfit. And even Miriam, even though she's just wearing a flannel and a beanie, I'm like, dude, you're so cool. I had when I was in school, we were wearing uniforms when I was 12. But outside of that, I have pictures of me wearing like the disgusting different graphic prints. There was like lightning bolts and tiger stripes and cheetah print, and yeah, it was just bad. So, but
Yeah.
this is a movie, so they can't look horrible. But
Exactly. Yeah, and it was like I didn't know what to do with my hair. So this was like before I knew how to take care of my hair.
oh man, in 2002, I was in second grade, so I would have been, what is that, 7? I would have been 7. So couldn't quite relate, but when I was 12 going into 13, that's when Tumblr came around. So yeah, that was a time. Love Tumblr. I feel like this friend group would have just eaten up Tumblr. They would have been the Tumblr queens. They're really cute.
Mhm.
And as much as I wish I had like, even to this day, I wish I was more of a Priya, but I'm definitely a Maylin. I'm like a Maylin Abby hybrid. And if you don't know what we're talking about, please go watch the movies because they're just the cutest little friend group and capture teenage girlhood very, very well, I think.
Yeah. Abby's chaotic energy is like literally like when I was watching it, I was like, man, this girl is chaos. And I was like, I think that was also me. I was I was like very chaotic.
While we're talking about personal experiences, fun fact, for people who don't know, I'm half Filipino, half Chinese, but I'm closer to the Chinese side of my family just because that's my mom's side and they're here in the States and in the Bay Area, and my Filipino side is still in the Philippines and I never see them. So anyway, I'm more accustomed to like the Chinese culture, and I had like a Chinese name growing up and it was Mei Mei, which is Chinese for younger sister. And I used to know how to write it in Chinese. I don't anymore. So that also just hit on like a whole other level when I saw this movie.
Oh,
So
wait.
mm-hmm.
So wait, but she's not a younger sister.
And I'm not either. I'm
That's
the eldest.
interesting. Oh, what? Okay. I'm confused,
Yeah.
but okay.
I don't know why. Anyway, all of that to say, yeah, I related to this movie on so many different levels. From her nickname, her name is Mei Lin, but they call her Mei Mei often throughout the movie. The whole movie is about her trying to maintain and gain her mother's approval by being the quote unquote perfect daughter, which in their family means putting your parents and your family above yourself, and how that goes against a lot of May's, values and who she is as a person. So I guess we can just jump in to talk about the movie. She doesn't start out being able to turn into a panda. It manifests itself after her mother finds these drawings that May has made about one of her favorite boy bands, Four Town. Or no, after she has made these drawings about this cashier at the Daisy Mart, and has drawn him as half human, half merman. And the mom finds them and thinks horrible, horrible things about this person, and goes down to Daisy Mart and confronts the guy about it and shows all of the drawings to him and to all of the customers there. And one of those customers is May's classmate named Tyler. And then next day, he tells the entire school about it. But that night, she goes home and she's feeling immense shame and embarrassment. And the mom's like justification for it is like, you're my perfect angel child. He made you do these things. He put these like disgusting, gross thoughts in your head. So she's feeling immense shame. And that's kind of what triggers the panda, because that night she's really like berating herself. And I think
Yeah.
that whole scene where she's talking to herself in the mirror, she says, how could you do these things? She's crying in her pillow. She's like, Mom, I'm so sorry. And she looks at herself in the mirror and she's like, you are her pride and joy. So act like it. And I don't know if that's necessarily like a cultural thing, but for me and my family growing up, there was this kind of unspoken rule that like you as their child are a direct reflection of your parents. If you are a quote unquote good child and have a lot of, I don't know, have accomplished a lot or whatever, it's because of your parents. But if you're a quote unquote bad child and you aren't succeeding and you aren't doing well, it's because of your parents. And that's, first of all, a lot of pressure to put on a child, but then also like a really shitty thing to do to parents, which I'm guilty of saying that sometimes if a baby's like screaming its head off in a grocery store. I don't think this much anymore, but I used to. If a child was screaming in a grocery store, I'm like, get your child under control. What's wrong with you? But now I'm like, this child is having feelings and the parent is giving space. Is it annoying as hell? Yes. But I'm not going to pass judgment on anyone. But anyway, so then that night she has a dream, and the temple that she works at with her parents, it's dedicated to one of their ancestors who has a really deep connection to the red panda, and it triggers the red panda within her, and she wakes up and she is a red panda. And I really like the scene that follows if you want to talk about that, because I thought it was really
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah, it's really good. Like she wakes up, goes into the bathroom, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm a red panda." And her mom thinks that she's started her period, which like I think, we'll get into that later about like the metaphor of the red panda possibly
Did
being
the red
this.
peony bloom? And I love
Yeah.
that scene because the dad like is walking down the hall because he's concerned and he's ready to help. And as soon as she says that, he like freezes, turns, and walks away.
Yes. And I just love that the when the mom comes into the bathroom, she's like pulling out all these different sizes of pads. She's like, we got overnight, we got this, we got this, we got this. I was like, okay, this is an instant of like where having an overprotective mom would like actually be helpful.
Truly, yeah. Kind of a personal question for you. Feel free to not answer.
Yeah.
How did your parents navigate the period conversation?
I don't remember, honestly. Like, I really don't remember. I think I was one of the last of my like very, very close childhood friends to get my period. I didn't talk about it as much with like my school friends, but I had like two really good friends who lived on my street. And I think I was the oldest and also the last of the two of them to get my period. I don't remember my first period. I don't remember talking to my mom about it. Like, none of that is like a recollection that I actually have, but I do remember my mom telling me to never wear tampons.
My
And
parents said the same thing too.
yeah, I was not
My
allowed to wear tampons. Yeah. And I think it's because of something about like literally putting something inside of you and like all of that kind of stuff. But I didn't really learn tampon etiquette. I learned tampon etiquette from reading the package, which is like, whatever. And then like discussing it with my other female friends as I got older and like being like, my mom told me I'm not allowed to wear tampons. So I just like taught myself how to use them. And then like having friends that we were comfortable enough to like actually have those conversations is like the more I started using them and learning about them. And like I couldn't go swimming when I was on my period when I was younger and like all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I was on swim team and I wasn't allowed to use things until I don't know why I'm like censoring myself. We're all adults here. I wasn't allowed to use tampons until I was like in high school, my like senior year of high school. And I remember it was so embarrassing because like when I was a freshman, it's like burned into my brain. I was on my period at a swim meet and my friend nudges me and she's like, Marissa, you're bleeding. And I was like, what? She was like, you're bleeding. And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, I can't put a pad in my swimsuit. That's weird. So I asked one of my teammates if they had an extra tampon, and they did. I had never used one before though, and I felt embarrassed enough being caught bleeding, having to ask for a tampon. I was like, I'm not going to ask this person how to do it. That's weird. I didn't do it right. Let's just say that. And I ended up just having to throw the tampon away. But the reason why I ask is because as we were just talking about periods, I have a very distinct memory of I started, how old was I? I think I had just started seventh or eighth grade, and I was in my room, and my mom tossed an Oprah magazine at me, and the cover was about like periods. And that was how I learned about, yeah, that's how I learned about periods. So thanks, Oprah, for teaching me about periods, because I didn't have sex ed growing up. It was very, very taboo to talk about it. And so
I mean, yeah, I had health class. It was like one class a year, not class. It was like a workshop or a lecture. We did like one a year for, I think it was like fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And each one got more in depth and more in detail. And then once you get to high school, you learn about the reproductive system and all of that. Well, at least like that's I went to a public school in Cincinnati, so that's how we did it then. I'm sure it's different now. Who the heck knows? But it was like the workshop basically was like we got condoms. We were not taught how to use them. They just came in like a baggie. It was like we got condoms, deodorant, and like all this stuff, and they taught us about puberty and like balls dropping and women getting their period, and just like very vague terms. I do remember that. I remember getting like a baggie that had like it was just like one of those like tie baggies that had like condoms and deodorant.
Loved at least that once. When
Yeah.
I was in high school, once a year they would do this like once for 1 week out of the year, they would hold these like I don't even remember what they were called, but basically it was a bunch of teachers at a table in the gym and they would separate boys and girls. So girls would have their own meeting and the boys would have their own, just telling people to abstain from sex. Sex is bad. And if you have it before marriage, you go to hell. Yeah. Anyway,
That is
it was super
horrific.
Yeah.
I
So instead of learning, things that would have helped me as a teenager as my body is changing and things are happening, I was just told to not have sex.
yeah, it is just a clear reminder to me of my liberal education where I'm like, wow, there are people who grew up truly, it's like you'd hear that, right? It's like I've heard that that's a thing, but like, good God.
Yeah. I've pushed a
How
lot of
is
it
that
out.
helpful?
I just remembered
Yeah.
that was anyway, it was weird.
Yeah. I mean, like that's one of the questions that we had was like, is the red panda a metaphor for periods? And the answer is actually like kind of yes. Like there is a quote that we pulled from the director and the creators of Turning Red that says the red panda is a metaphor not just for puberty, but also what we inherit from our moms and how we deal with the things that we inherit from them. It was always in the very earliest versions of the film. Everybody on the crew was unapologetic in support of having these real conversations about periods and these moments in girls' lives. So it's not just about the period, of course, as the whole, we will discuss like all of the deeper meanings of this movie, but in a way, it is kind of about how taboo it is to talk about this kind of stuff and how uncomfortable some parents are talking about it with their kids, like your mom, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I think it was part of the trailer too, when the mom comes in with all the different period products and people were in an outrage. They were like, you can't talk about that. That's disgusting. That's so inappropriate. And it was really funny to me that was a thing. And then, fun fact, I don't know if you've watched the Baymax shorts on Disney Plus, but the whole like series is about him helping other people within the community, and it's solely focused on him. He's not really part of he's like part of Big Hero 6, but that's not like a main part of the show. But there's one episode where he's helping a parent pick out pads and tampons for their kid, or he is doing it to help a child that he had run into or something. But I remember it was really sweet because then all of these parents around him, both moms and dads, which I thought was very, very sweet, come up and they're like, my daughter really likes to use these when she's feeling some kind of way, or like you only need liners if she's having a light whatever. And then this dad's like, yeah, and I like using, or my kid likes using these. And I was like, this is so sweet. I love it. I think it's just kind of like, for me, it's like mental health. The more we talk about it, the less weird it is because it's a normal bodily thing. And the more that we are so like hush hush about it, again, makes people with uteruses feel like there is something wrong with them. And that is like a very big theme of this movie, is that whether it's her period or the big red panda, her parents make her feel kind of, or inadvertently make her feel very bad about it and very ashamed of it. So.
Yeah. And like, I think it's really important to have more like very specifically period conversations too. I was listening to a podcast the other day where a woman was talking about her infertility journey. And she was in a room with her doctor and her husband. This may have been not her story, but she was like telling a story of a friend. So it's like very like separated. Yeah. But anyway, the woman in the room who was struggling with infertility, the doctor sort of like asked if there were any further questions, and the husband asked what a period was
No.
because he had never felt comfortable asking his wife. Yeah. So, and that's like a married man that's trying to have a child with a grown woman. So, like, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that like all men are like that. I'm just saying that like it's so taboo to talk about, especially for men or like for people who don't have periods, right? Like it's very much like I was never taught this. I don't freaking know what to ask and I'm embarrassed to, like
there's so many videos out there on like TikTok and stuff of girlfriends asking their partners, specifically usually their boyfriends, like they show them a pad and they're like, how does a girl use, or how does someone with the uterus use this? Like, how do you think this goes? And they like
my favorite is when the guys just like stick it to their side. Like, what?
No.
They just like slap it on themselves. Like, we just slap it to our,
that's
sure.
how
that works.
Yeah, totally. We just stick it on ourselves. I'm grateful that my boyfriend is not weird about it. He'll buy me tampons if I ask him to. He is very, very understanding, and it's just not weird. I was the one who made it weird because of my past experiences. No. So I remember we had been talking about it once, and I was like, I kept apologizing. I was like, I'm so sorry. This is so weird. And he's like, why are you apologizing? It's a thing that you have to do every month. It's fine. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, thanks.
No, yeah. I did the same thing. Like I was always very apologetic of it too, especially when it came to like sexual things. Like I'd always be like, sorry on my, like, and it was I've only ever had partners who were like, great, we'll work around it. We'll figure it out. Let's like, that's awesome. Like no one has ever made me feel bad about like having a period, but it is definitely something that I felt shame about and being like, oh no, this is something that's happening that will affect us. And it's like, it doesn't really at all. It's all, once you get over the hump of like actually talking about it and like not making it a thing,
Yeah, exactly.
But I remember, I remember having a lot of shame about it myself with my partners. So
yeah. And speaking of shame, Mei Lin has to kind of deal with so moving forward through the plot of the movie, basically she turns into Red Panda. She's like, oh no, I have to get this under control. And she teaches herself that when she has her emotions regulated or under control, she doesn't turn into a panda. So she goes into school very, what's the best word you would say? I wouldn't even say regulated. I just feel like she's
suppressing.
Yeah, totally. She is suppressing, kind of like Elsa, very concealed, don't feel, because she's afraid that if she shows any glimmer of emotion, she'll turn into a panda and it'll be really bad, because her friends come and tell her like, yo, Tyler told everyone what happened at Daisy Mart and now everyone knows what happened. And she's like, huh, what is, it was so funny. She was like, Tyler is a jerkwad. Words were exchanged. Unpleasant truths were exposed or something. And she's just trying so hard to get under control. And everyone's like, what the heck is wrong with you? And they get to class and Miriam's like, you okay? And she's like, yeah, whatever, I'm fine. And she's like passing her notes like, you okay? Also, hey, your mom is outside hiding behind a tree. So everyone like goes to the window because now May's mom has been outed by the security guard and he's like, you need to leave. And she's like, I'm just here to tell my daughter she forgot her pads, and exposes that to everyone. Like her mom is so smart, but somehow so not, because she's like so embarrassing her daughter. So because of that, she gets another rush. May gets another rush of embarrassment, of shame, and poof, turns into the panda. The mom sees it. She realizes what's going on and chases May home. And then May's in her bedroom crying, sobbing, trying to like get rid of the panda by doing all the things that had brought her comfort. And then the mom kind of tells her, what is happening with her and what's going on. She's like, or the dad comes in and he's like, I didn't know it would happen so soon, or it's happened already. And May's like, what do you mean already? So her mom has to go into the backstory. An ancestor from a long time ago asked the gods to help turn her into a red panda to protect her children while there was a war happening and the men were away, and she wanted to protect her kids. And I just thought that was like a really good example of how sometimes we do a lot of things out of survival, we do things to protect ourselves, and then it comes to a point, whether generationally or within our lifetime, where it no longer serves us. Or as May's mom calls it, is an inconvenience. So the mom reveals that there is a cure, but basically is saying that the cure is to just hide it away, which I thought was really interesting and also kind of fuels a lot of May's problems in the future, I guess.
Yeah.
And then their kind of quote unquote solution for now, while May is in the process of turning in and out of the panda, is to take her things away and like to make her room so empty and bare. And I thought that was a really interesting example of how like the inadvertent ways parents can try to do something helpful, but it's actually not what or not even parents, like people will do this too. They try to do something helpful and with very good intentions, but it ends up not being exactly what that person needs. Yeah. And then May overhears her parents talking, and her mom's just like, this is awful. No one can see her like this. I never wanted this for her. And that just makes May feel really guilty about something that wasn't her fault. And she, again, like she did after her mom found the drawings, is blaming herself, which I think was like really sad. That like made me really emotional. Like, it's not, oh, you sweet baby child.
Yeah. And that's like one of my favorite moments in the whole movie is that moment when May is being isolated and her friends kind of show up and they're like, hey, we miss you. We thought you were dead.
Yeah.
And then they see her and like that was what she needed. She didn't need the isolation. It was like that realization that like my friends ground me. My friends love me. They don't see me as a monster. They don't see this as a problem. Mm-hmm. They're not afraid of me. And it's just like a beautiful moment of her sort of realizing that like she does have control over what's happening to her. And she and that the way that she can deal with it is through her friends.
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet too, because her friends see her as a panda and they're not scared. They're just like, we love you either way, panda or no panda. And I think that line, it's a very like, I don't say it's a throwaway line because it's definitely impactful, but I think it kind of highlights how her mom has inadvertently sent this message or this narrative that her love for May is conditional, that like she'll only continue to love May or only continue to give her approval when the panda is gone. And that's what like kind of drives May's desperation, I guess, to control it. And also because she really wants to go to this concert, this Four Town concert. And that's like a big motivator for her. But then, like you said, it's her friends and their true unconditional love for her to help her regulate the panda.
Yes. And then to continue on the plot of the movie, the concert that we just mentioned is happening on the same night as this ritual that May's mom would like to perform so that they can hide and conceal the panda away. And then we also discover that May's mom has a mom who she does not have a good relationship with. So May's grandma and her mom have like a really like sort of, it seems like touchy relationship. And so her grandma is going to come help with the ritual because she doesn't trust that her daughter, May's mom, can do it on her own. And that's like another glimpse into that sort of generational cycle that's happening, right? And they try to do the ritual, and it's not that it fails. It's that May decides she wants to keep the panda. And actually before that, also, May has been using the panda to secretly behind her back raise money to get tickets to this concert. And the last hustle. Thing, yeah, that hustle drive, their entrepreneurial spirit, I was like, I feel this. I love it. It's my thing. You go, girls, you go. And then the like last bit of money they needed to raise was by May performing as the panda at that kid Tyler's birthday party, the one who was embarrassing her and made her feel bad, but he basically like threatened to tell her mom. So she was like, I'll do it if you pay me $200. And he was like, I'll pay you $200. So that's like all they needed for the concert tickets. But at the birthday party, she's sort of, because they find out that the concert is the same night as the ritual she has to do, she kind of like has this very very emotional reaction where she loses control and she attacks Tyler because he's being a jerk as always. But her mom finds out that that's where she is and then comes and sees her there and basically is like, you've no choice, like we're getting rid of this, right? And she blames, again, as she had done earlier, she blames May's friends and doesn't let May take any of the responsibility because she's a good girl. And May lets her friends take the blame because she's so desperate for her mother's approval. So then a few days pass, the ritual happens, and May decides that she actually wants to keep the panda. And so it seems like the ritual has failed, but it's that she wants to keep it. And that makes her mother so angry that her red panda comes out. And her red panda is basically a monster. And
it's huge.
Huge. And so she ruins the Four Town concert. We did not get nearly enough of them performing, I just have to say. My 12-year-old heart was like, why? And in the process, basically they're going to try to redo the ritual again. May knocks her mom down and she passes out, and she's so big that just May can't like pull her back into the ritualistic circle. So all of the aunties and her grandma have to turn back into their red panda forms to help get May's mom back into the circle. Mm-hmm. And that was like, I think the first step of like breaking the cycle, right? Was them sort of being like, in order to help her, we have to do this for ourselves too.
I just wanted to highlight too that it was really pivotal that they became their pandas, because before they had done the ritual, the grandma, they're having dinner with the whole family, and Mr. Gao is there because he's the one that's going to perform the ritual, because I guess he was a shaman in some part of his life. He's an interesting character. I wish they had talked about him more, because he's just like, he's a super random side character, but he's so interesting. Anyway, besides the point, her grandma is saying like, you know, tonight you are going to do what all of these women at this table have done before, and you're going to banish the beast within and finally become your true self. And I thought that line was very interesting, because they are furthering the narrative that this quote unquote bad part of yourself, you have to hide it away, right? Instead of being like, as we know, having been on our healing journey and our authenticity journey for a while, that the beast or the quote unquote bad stuff is part of you. It is who you are, because becoming your authentic self is about accepting all of that, not just the parts that are easy, quote unquote, to love. So I thought it was really cool that the aunties and the grandma become their red panda and do something like, I guess, good, you could say, or like something helpful with it, when the entire movie they've just been talking about how it's a monster, how it's bad, how it's an inconvenience. And yeah, like you said, that's like one of the clearest parts of the movie where they're breaking the cycle.
Yeah. It's like a step. It seems like a clear sacrifice that they're making, because they've tried so hard to conceal this part of themselves, but they see how it's affecting May and May's mom, and they're like, we need to step in, and the only way we can do that is by revealing this part of ourselves that we have been trying to hide.
Yeah. Long story short, through the power of music and love, the ritual is a success, but they get teleported into this like astral realm, I guess, and May finds her mom in like her teenage form, which I guess is around the time that May's mom's panda has come out, because it was revealed earlier in the movie that the reason why her mom is so scared of her own panda is because she was angry and she hurt her mom, because they were, I guess, fighting about Jin, who is the dad and now husband, and I guess the mom didn't approve. They got into a whole fight about it, and Ming hurts her mom, and to this day the grandma still bears a scar. And then so it just perpetuated this thing like, the panda's bad, the panda's bad, the panda's bad, off of one mistake. And we've talked a lot about like family expectations, cultural expectations, and people pleasing, but there's a whole level of perfectionism to this movie that we can touch on in just a second. But so they're in this astral realm, and there's this really, really sweet moment where the mom as her teenage self is crying, and she's like, I'm so sick of being perfect. I'll never be good enough for her, which is, about her mom, the grandma. And she keeps saying, like, I hurt her. I'm not a good daughter, blah, blah, blah. And just like we highlighted in our Inside Out episode, the difference between shame and guilt. Shame says, I am a bad thing, whereas healthy guilt says, I did a bad thing. And so much of this movie has been about, like, I am a bad thing because of my panda, or because of the quote unquote bad things, And also because of that, the family reacts so much out of shame and fear because of this one instance where Ming hurts her mom. So they're like, the panda must be gone. Because May even questions too. She's like, what happens if the ritual doesn't work? Or what happens if I hold on to my panda? And her grandma's like, you just can't. Like, we're not even gonna allow that to
We're
be a
not going to
possibility.
let that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really, so anyway, they're in the astral realm. It's really sweet because then May's comforting her mom, and she says, I know it feels that way all the time of not feeling good enough, but it isn't true. And I just thought that was really, really sweet. But I also want to highlight that, like,
Yeah.
to anyone listening who can relate to kind of generational trauma or strained relationships with their parents, it's not on you to heal your parent. I think you can do the same things that May did, in that you can remind them that they're allowed to make mistakes, that they're not imperfect, and you can love them anyway if you have that kind of relationship. But you can't heal them, you can't change them, and you can't fix them. They have to do it themselves. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Yes. Appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. So anyway, in the end, May gets to keep her panda and lives her best life and has it under control. And the mom is very supportive and supportive and understanding. And the relationship has definitely changed. And even May says near the end, a lot of things have changed. And sometimes I wish they could go back to the way things were, but nothing stays the same forever. And that's okay. And I was like,
yes.
And then her
I love
very
that
last line of the movie is, we've all got an inner beast hidden away, and a lot of us never let it out. Yeah. We all have weird, quirky, goofy, silly, imperfect sides. And I think it's really important to, again, like this movie highlights, embrace them, accept them, let them out. They're not necessarily quote unquote bad things, because,
Yeah.
as I've said in so many other episodes, I feel like I'm a broken record sometimes. When we try to hide those quote unquote bad parts away, we just continue the cycle that has harmed us and gotten us to that point of, belittling ourselves, dismissing ourselves, shrinking ourselves, and trying to only present the quote unquote good parts. And that's not what it means to be authentic. And that gets exhausting after a while. So
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about that too is that because this takes place like they're in middle school, like often middle school is the time where we start to hide those parts of ourselves the most, not only because we're changing and we're not the same person that we were to our parents, but also that's when everyone else is also feeling uncomfortable with themselves, so they start projecting that onto their peers. And then they, like with the Tyler being basically a bully, right? Like, however, what I love about this movie is that because May was so able to be so authentically herself, everyone was celebrating that. And yes, it was like they liked the fact that she was a red panda and that's what they were celebrating. But like, I do love that, like, nobody in the school was being cruel to her because she was a red panda, right? Like everyone was like celebrating that about her. And there's that moment in the film when the girls run in the bathroom and they see her and they're like, oh my God, you're a panda. And then their eyes just change and like, you're so cute. Can I touch you? I'll do anything,
Yeah. They're like, I'll do anything to see the panda. I'll give you money. Someone's like, my kidney, my soul.
My soul. Yeah. Exactly. So I just like that part of it too, because middle school can be a time where we're trying to hide the parts of ourselves the most. And I like that they kind of like let her peers embrace that.
Yeah. I like by the end of the movie, she gets to be a kid so many times in other episodes, but I think it's it's always nice for me to see, as someone who was kind of parentified or kind of forced to grow up quickly and feels like they didn't really get a childhood, that in the end she does get to be a kid. And of course I wish that for everybody, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But it's funny because in the beginning, her opening monologue, she's talking about how she's an adult because her bus pass says so. Because in Toronto, I guess if your age is like 13 and up, you're considered an adult and you get an adult bus pass. And she's like, see, I'm an adult and I have to work and clean and I have all of these responsibilities, but like that's normal. And that's why my mom loves me so much, is because I can do all of these things and I'm good at everything. But then by the end, she gets to go hang out with her friends. They're going to go karaokeing, and then they're going to come over for dinner, instead of her just like constantly prioritizing her family's needs above her own. It's a very, as with everything we've talked about, the healing journey, these movies, it's definitely a balance of the both and. Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who are unfamiliar with my Instagram or my TikTok, I had a couple of reels about certain themes from Turning Red, and I was just gonna like highlight them here if you don't want to go to my page and check them out. So
We can put the links in the show note too. Yeah.
Yeah, links will be in the show notes. You can watch them there. But yeah, go ahead.
So this movie is clearly like about someone going through a bodily change. So I feel like there's a lot to say about body image here.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that I want to put out there is that like bodies change.
Yeah.
Like not just when you're in middle school and it's like that time when everyone's quote unquote like body is quote unquote changing. Like your body changes all the time and it's constantly changing. And there are many things in your life that can cause it to change, like stress or pregnancy or this or that. Like there's a lot that can happen. And that when those changes do happen, right? Or like a pandemic, which happened to all of us very recently, like when those changes happen, it can release strong emotions in us. We can have very like visceral reactions to the ways that our body is changing. But one reminder that I want to have for you is that your body is not the problem. And that it's not your body's fault. What is happening to you is not your body's fault, and that there's always something a little bit deeper that is actually happening. And so I think a lot of times when people's bodies change, they blame themselves and their bodies for that change. And, you know, maybe sometimes it is something that you have done differently. But again, it's not your body's fault that you're having a bad body image, right? And often when we are so focused on what is wrong with our bodies, it is because we're worried about something else, something deeper.
It's usually like the fear of what other people think about us. Again, tapping into kind of the people pleasery kind of a thing.
It can be, but it's not always. It can be connected to a lot of different things, and there's a lot of work that you can do to get to that like deeper root or deeper meaning. Like for me, when I'm having bad body image days, it is the fundamental feeling is that like I am not a lovable person and that no one will ever love me. So that doesn't have it's not necessarily how other people are perceiving me. It's how one person, because like the goal is a monogamous relationship, right? Like one person who doesn't quite exist yet, right? Like I have not had that, so therefore I will never have it. And the reason I don't have it is because of my body. Like that's where my train of thought goes. But that's not why.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I hear what you're saying. And I'm also hearing that there is still some external.
It's like external. Yeah.
Yeah. Like external. I don't want to necessarily call it validation, but there's definitely that narrative of I am not lovable has been either confirmed or repeated or just like thrown back at you through external sources. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. And so it's definitely, yes, for the most part, the voice we hear in our head that is telling us something negative about our body is not our own voice. It is another voice that has been put in there by either the media or someone else, you know? So yes, that is true. But yeah, so it's essentially getting to the root of the negative body feelings is really helpful, because then it can be like, okay, I'm not actually angry that I'm not mad at my body. There's this external thing that I can't really control that I'm actually more upset about.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. When you were talking about, it's not your body's fault for its changes, it just reminded me of how there are things that we can't control, I think people talk about the puberty we go through as teenagers, but I don't think a lot of people talk about the puberty that, and I don't know if men go through this, so sorry, I only know my anatomy and my hormones. But as I'm getting closer to 30, I'm noticing a lot of hormonal changes, and no one warned me about this. My like, and the other thing too is, especially on the body image train, there's this weird expectation for grown women to have bodies of younger women, specifically like teenagers, like very slender, very slim. But another thing that I'm noticing happening with my body is that my hips are getting wider because my hormones and my body and the evolution of my body is saying, okay, we're at that time where we're ready to have kids. So let's widen our hips in the birth canal, and I don't think that's something anyone has told me. No, it's not a conversation I had ever had. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
And you
your
can't make
body's
your
gonna
hips
change.
smaller.
No,
That's like not
no.
something you could do. Yeah.
Hip thing or the thigh gap thing. Like it's not.
Yeah.
First of all, it doesn't matter if you have hip dips. It doesn't matter if you have a thigh gap. What matters is that you're happy and you're quote unquote healthy, whatever that means for you. And your body's going to change even throughout the day, right? And then this is
Yeah.
why I stopped personally. I stopped weighing myself so much because I would hop on the scale in the morning and I'd be like, yeah, I'm whatever weight. And then I'd weigh myself at night, not knowing that, well, I mean, like knowing, but not really knowing, if you know what I mean. That after
Mhm.
I've eaten, obviously it's going to be a different weight because my body hasn't metabolized everything yet.
But yeah, so and like even more, I think like going along with that, with the, your body is not the problem. I just want to like reiterate that your body is not the problem. There's always something else. I think the other one is that not being good enough thing. Like,
Mm.
which Mei Ling and her mother struggle with, feeling not good enough for their parents. Like there is that feeling of not being good enough when your body doesn't look the way you want it to, or the way that you expect or society expects, right? And that is definitely an underlying feeling in a lot of body image issues or insecurities. And exactly what May says to her mom is like, I know it feels that way, but it isn't true. You
Mm-hmm.
are good enough in the body you have as you exist right now. And I know that you said this earlier with well intentions, but also like health is not a moral obligation. So I don't even care if you're healthy and you're listening to this. Like you are good enough just as you are. I don't care if you're pursuing health. I don't care if you're pursuing weight loss. You deserve to be alive and you deserve to live a life that you can get through without being discriminated against because of your body. Like, and I think that's something that a lot of people misunderstand, because a lot of people do very well intentionally say, like, as long as you're happy and as long as you're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And health and happiness doesn't have to be the goal. And it's something that I've had to do a lot of unlearning of, because when I first went on my journey becoming a health and fitness professional as a plus size person, as a person who exists in a larger body, like reading the Health at Every Size book really helped me be like, yes, I do not have to pursue a certain weight because I can be healthy at any size. But then in my unlearning, I realized, sure, I can be healthy at any size, and health is and size is not an indicator of health, but also that health is not a moral obligation, and you are not a better person because you are a healthy person, and you're not a worse person because you are not a healthy person, and because you're not pursuing health, if that makes sense. So I just want
No,
to say that for people too.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does. No, thank you for saying that because it's not something I was aware of. Like you said, I meant it with very good intentions, but I had never really thought about the subliminal messaging that I may have or that phrase may convey. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And you are so right. You are worthy wherever you are in your journey. And like you said, you are worthy to be alive just as you are. So Thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah.
This is why I love you, HB.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, love you too. There's more that I can unpack here too. And I think this can be kind of thrown away because it was a throwaway line in the movie. So like her aunties, as soon as they see her, like she lost weight, she gained weight, she looks like her mother, she looks like her father. And these I think were put in the movie as just like to represent those unsolicited comments that we get from family members and how we can just let them go. Do your best to just let them go, let them slide off of you because they have nothing to do with you. And it has a lot to do with everything in this movie that we're talking about is that like perfectionist sort of like, this is the way things quote unquote should be, right? Yeah. And the fact that they're like throwing different lines at her is like none of it is true because none of them can agree on what, like, you know,
because you're getting both.
It's just let it go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what's happening like in society. We get all of this messaging, like the monologue in the Barbie movies, like you have to be thin, but you can't say that you want it to be thin. You have to say that you want to be, and like you're getting all of this mixed messaging. Just breathe and do you. Just breathe and do you.
You do you, boo-boo. Seriously, you do you. I agree.
And then I just have a couple more points to make in terms of like body image and that kind of stuff. I love that when they're talking about the ancestor, like what a powerful woman this ancestor was, right? Like what an incredibly powerful woman. And I just loved the description of like how she asked to become a red panda was like she harnessed her emotions to transform into a powerful mythical beast. And I loved that because it's very much like a connection to sort of like the mind to body connection and how like mindfulness is so helpful when it comes to that like connection that we do have to our body and the different things that we can get from that, because I do think that a lot of people associate mindfulness with this like Zen sort of yoga meditation, and that's not what mindfulness is. Only it is a part of what mindfulness is, but mindfulness can be turning into a powerful mythical beast too. Like it can be like channeling your inner whatever. Like for me it's always She-Hulk, right? Like it can be taking like a deep breath and being like, all right, She-Hulk's here, you know. And that's like a piece of mindset that we don't, or mindfulness that we don't see a lot when we think of mindfulness, and it's shown in the movie both ways. But like when we think of mindfulness, we think of that like getting calm, getting centered, getting grounded. That's not always what it needs to be. Zen, mindfulness can be stepping into your power, growing a little bit taller, you know, pulling from energy wherever you need to pull your energy from, you know. That's also mindfulness.
Being just intentional is what I'm hearing from you.
Yes. Yeah.
Like there's the mindfulness where you do want to become mindful maybe of like regulating your emotions, and then there's being mindful of being intentional as you go about your day.
I just love the choice of like harnesses her emotions, because that's kind of like the mindfulness practice is like, okay, what am I feeling right now? How can I reel it in and step into the situation as my best self, you know?
Yeah, because a lot of it is May thinks the panda comes when she is having a strong emotional reaction and is triggered, and then by the end of the movie, she has learned that one, the panda isn't bad, but then two, it's not even just like a visceral reaction. It's just about being mindful of her emotions and how she is using them, being intentional with them, and just giving yourself that small pause in that moment of your day so that you can just take a deep breath, relax, breathe before you jump into the thing so that you feel more regulated and, as you said, Heather, intentional moving forward.
Yeah. And I think that's also something that people miss when it comes to meditation as well, is like they think meditation is just like blank mind. And there's a lot of really great metaphors that I've heard used for it, where it's like your thoughts are on a stream floating away on a lily pad, or your thoughts are on a cloud floating away on, you're in the sky and they're floating away on a cloud, you know, like
their cars passing by.
Yeah. So many great metaphors for that. And then the one final thing I want to say about this is less related to like fitness and body image as it is like food related. But I saw a really great post on Instagram recently that was talking about like mindfulness when it comes to food, and that like mindfulness when it comes to food can be I'm satisfied and I'm only going to eat half of my meal because I'm satisfied, or it can be I'm going to eat my full meal and enjoy it because I want to. Like both of those things are mindful as long as you're listening to yourself and your body. And then the final thing about food that I will add is I just love how they depict her father cooking and everyone's reactions. Like at the beginning of the movie, when they show the food and they show how beautiful it is, it just like reiterates how like food can be an experience and it's not just fuel or it's not just nutrition. It's not just like food is an experience and it can be an experience. And I love that they brought it up again at the end when they invite the girls to dinner and they're like, for Jin's cooking? Anytime. Or like, you know, they just got like really excited. Yeah.
They are really excited about it. I also just really like, even though the movie's about an Asian family, I like the highlight on Asian food. That whole scene felt very Ghibli, but as someone who like was kind of made fun of for like bringing rice to school or dim sum or pot stickers or bows or whatever, it was just really nice to see like positive reactions to food. And like it doesn't really feel like race or culture or discrimination, prejudice is a big theme of this movie, but for me that representation is always just really refreshing and nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And speaking of representation, I just want to like let this out as I also love that the main member of Four Town that Mei Ling has a crush on is the black one, because I feel like that just like you don't see that so much in the media, and also a lot of the boy bands in the 2000s were just like white, so it just like was really nice that they like really, I think they made it a point to be like the one that she's in love with is a person of color.
His name is Robert and he speaks French.
Yeah.
But he's also, to me, he is like the Zane of Four Town, if you know what I mean. Like he's kind of mysterious, he's not very talkative, he's a little more reserved, and I had a huge crush on Zane growing up. So.
See, that's after my time. I don't even
One Direction? Where am I?
Yeah, I was like in my 20s when One Direction was famous.
And we're like we're fangirling over Four Town and they're not even a real band, Heather.
Listen, I'm just saying that it feels weird that I would care about One Direction because I grew up with NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and O-Town.
And what is it, 94 degrees or whatever?
98 degrees. Oh, fun fact about 98 degrees that you and the listeners might not know is that I went to the same performing arts school growing up as they went to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've mentioned. It's fine. Well, they did the Mulan end credits song, and it's the song I don't.
Oh, right.
Yes.
So patrons know the tea, I guess.
That is a very fun fact. So for listeners, people who are new to the podcast, that's Heather's fun fact about 98 degrees. It is a very cool fun fact, but anyway. So all of the perfectionism stuff, I'm just going to put as show notes links to my reels and TikToks if you want them there. And we also put our notes when we watch these movies in Patreon. So if you want to see that and see maybe more of the things we weren't able to touch on this episode, feel free to hop over there. You get a free 7-day trial. And there are a couple different tiers and you can cancel anytime, but your support is always welcome. I have some questions for you before we wrap up. Speaking of, harnessing emotions and using them to turn into this mythological, which I think is so funny that they call it like a mythological beast when red pandas are very much real, but they're just
like, why are their red pandas so big? Like red pandas are like cute and small.
I am curious like what the mythology is behind that. I would love to do more research on that. But if you could turn into any animal, I know you say use your emotions to like channel your inner She-Hulk, but if you could turn into an animal, what would you choose?
Wait, I want you to guess. Oh no, you look so
I feel like I should know, and now I'm really embarrassed that I don't. Can I have a
It's also a mythological creature, if that helps.
A unicorn.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Because you are a unicorn. You're a fitness unicorn. That's your bio thing on Instagram.
Nah.
Yeah, duh.
I used to have a unicorn horn hanging around somewhere over here, but I don't see it. So I was just gonna like put it on my head, but it's not here. So
well, I was like, what animal captures Heather's essence? And when I thought of your essence, I just thought of like the iridescent shine, pink sparkles, clouds, and I was like, oh my god, a unicorn, duh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. For you, I would guess like some sort of jungle cat, maybe.
That's funny because I was thinking, well, first of all, I was thinking a house cat, but then since we were talking about more powerful things, I was thinking a tiger. Yeah. Look at you. Oh my goodness.
Anyway, yes. Okay, so I got it right. A jungle cat, a tiger. I'd be a
Yeah.
unicorn. Yeah. My question for you
Yeah.
is, what's your favorite Four Town song?
All of them. I'm looking it up because for the life of me now, I can't remember the words, but you know how Spotify Rap does their Spotify Rap. Nobody Like
Right.
You, You Know What's Up, and One True Love were all in my top songs of 2022.
I think Nobody Like You is the catchiest, but my favorite is the one that goes, I did it on my own.
Yeah, that was really funny because I was watching like a behind the scenes thing about Four Town specifically, and they were talking about because Phineas from, Billie Eilish's brother helped
Mhm.
write a lot of this music, and he was talking about how to tap into like the boy band mindset, a key part of it is double negatives. So if
Oh,
you listen to the songs, there's a couple of double negatives in there, and for me, I agree that Nobody Like You is the catchiest song, but One True Love is so unnecessarily dramatic and ridiculous. And I love that song so much. It's so silly.
yes. They're all so good. But yeah, I love the You Know What's Up because I think it's because it's playing when they have their entrepreneurial spirit on, and like I just love that, like that mesh of those two things happening at the same time. It's like they really are doing it on their own. Like look at them go. And then it's like I can do it too. Yeah, I just like want that to be my like I did it on my like I just yeah, I want it to be my theme song. Like when our businesses explode, right? Like when this podcast gets to more people, we can sing that song with triumph, we're like manifesting.
We can. How about this? We'll set a goal right now for listeners who are listening. If we can get to 50, 100 Spotify subscribers, YouTube subscriber, if we just hit like a collective 100, let's just say that, Heather and I will do a music video to that song.
I'll dress up like a unicorn, you dress up like a tiger.
All right, it's happening.
We'll reenact the one that they create. Yeah. Which is also such a special moment in the movie was when her dad like finds that video and shows it to her and he's like, you can erase it if you want, but this part of you made me laugh,
No, I think that's my favorite quote is people have all kinds of sides to them and some sides are messy. The point isn't to push the bad stuff away, it's to make room for it, to live with it. It's my favorite quote. There's so many good quotes in this movie, but that one's my favorite.
Yeah, if I had to pick a favorite quote, I also have far too many. My favorite moment in the movie is when, this is not a quote, but it's a moment. My favorite moment in the movie is when May's friends first find her as a panda and she's like crying in shame and doesn't want them to look at her and they just start beatboxing and they start singing the song. I cry every time. Every time I cry. I mean, I've only seen the movie twice, but both times I cry. But like I wasn't expecting it to get me this time and I was like no, there's just something about her friends, like it's that like support and community where it's and they're like singing to her. It's just so special.
And they
it's
like
just
know her
yeah,
better than her parents know her at this point, and it's very sweet, it's very special. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, since you said the dad quote, I'll say her mom's quote. I see you, May May. You try to make everyone happy, but are so hard on yourself. And if I taught you that, I'm sorry. So don't hold back for anyone. The farther you go, the prouder I'll be. Excuse me?
I know.
Excuse me? Yeah.
Fuck, excuse me? Yeah. No, that's the
So
line
sweet.
that initially made me cry the first time I watched it, and then proceeded to cry in my boyfriend's arms 15 minutes afterward.
Oh.
It was, yeah. I mean, I think anyone who can relate to everything we talked about today, has always wanted that moment from their parent, just to like take accountability, to acknowledge the ways that they may have negatively impacted them to whatever degree, you know. And yeah, I just, it makes I'm tearing up just thinking about it. And then Heather, as you know, things going on with my mom right now,
Yeah.
it just hits on a whole other level. It's a very good quote, and I know that some people may get a little angry when they hear that line. I remember seeing that a lot on social media because they were like, it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic for the grandma in Encanto to apologize. It's unrealistic that the mom is apologizing right now. And again, as we talked about in the Inside Out episode, typically anger is the secondary emotion. I think there's something deeper under there. And as you were saying with body image, kind of doing a little bit of self-reflection and figuring out like, why does that make you angry so much? Why does that bring out maybe this big emotional reaction? What's the deeper thing there when you're ready to go that deep? I'm not saying like you always have to, because it, you know, sometimes it's the time and a place kind of a thing, but
yeah.
But
that's a good point too, is that like, sure, it's unrealistic, but like these, rather than making a movie that is real, like, is it realistic that she turns into a red panda? Like what?
Yeah.
But like, rather than making these movies realistic, they are helping us use them as a tool to heal.
Yeah, because it's giving that person the thing that they may have needed.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about these movies, right? Is that Pixar movies do so well, is that kind of bittersweet ending, and it's very heartfelt. So
if it's unrealistic for that apology, it's unrealistic for that grace, like, well, you're getting it now. You know?
Yeah, you're getting it now. And just because your parent, your caregiver, or the person who wronged you may never say that, you don't necessarily need that apology to move on, and you yourself can meet those needs. And yes, it's going to take a lot of work and it may take some time, but like, it is possible. So that's also a reminder I want to give you as you move forward from this episode and from this podcast, that you're not alone. And definitely find your community, rely on them, lean on them, accept the love from them, because as we saw in this movie with May, it can do some really amazing things. So yeah, I did have one last question for you, but because of time, I'm going to leave it for patrons only. So if you're curious what our responses are to this question, which I guess I should just say now, hop over to our Patreon. And the question is, would you forgive May's mom? So yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening, everybody, and join our Patreon if you want to hear or see our notes, hear more about the things we had to say about this movie, and see our bloopers,
or to keep the discussion going in Discord.
Yeah, keep the discussion going, and we'll see you next time.
All right, bye everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mental Health Multiverse podcast, and for spending time with us, HB and LB. Special shout out to our musical composer, Little HB. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, feel free to share it with others, post about it on social media, leave a rating and review, or become an exclusive Patreon member to see bonus and additional content. To stay up to date on all things MHM, you can follow us on Instagram at Heather Bodie and at @littlebit_notbroken, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to see our faces and watch some fun bloopers. You can find all of these links in the show notes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.